lasting impression on you? Yes, that is our question to begin with.
Thank you for this opportunity. Yes, I have been in protests. I have been it felt like a march. Back in 2016, 2017, one of our comrades or our colleague called Willie Kimani had an incident, and him and a few others were killed. So as the Law Society, the legal fraternity, we went to the streets, and that started a whole discussion on how lawyers participate on human rights protests. I've also had an opportunity to monitor as a human rights actor, just noting what happened, which situations, what are areas of concern, and the response of the duty bearers or the police, monitoring and documenting of cases of violations, and now how to follow them up in either legal processes or even administrative processes. Thank you.
Hi. I think personally I have lost count of the protests I've attended, because there's national protests, there's local protests, there's protest in campus, that sometimes it doesn't make it to the news. But I think for me, part of the most significant protests that I've attended in this country, one has been the Femicide March. And I think that was so personal, because a woman or a young person dying every day because of gender-based violence, that is intentional. Killing someone intentionally, you see. So that was pretty significant. And also the Gen Z protest was pretty significant for me as well, as a Gen Z alumni, because I'm not in the Gen Z bracket anymore. But yeah, thanks.
Hello, good afternoon. Well, I have participated in a couple of protests, but the most memorable one has to be the Gen Z protest, the first Maandamano, where we saw thousands, if not millions, of young people demanding their voices to be heard, and where we were able to witness the delicate line between freedom of expression and public management. And yeah, it was quite significant, and I'm sure to all of you here as well. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. So my first question to you, Ms. Catherine, is maybe you can tell the audience about Article 19, what you do exactly, and how it intersects with particularly the right to protest, seeing that Article 19 is about the freedom of expression.
Yes. So Article 19 is based on Universal Declaration on Human Rights that talks about freedom of expression. It's an international organization. The Kenya office is more of a regional basis office for Eastern Africa, and we do deal with freedom of expression and access to information. So how do people get information? How do they understand it, and how do they disseminate their opinion on that situation, especially on matters of public interest? So where people might use different ways to express. You might use art, you might use writings, you might use spoken word, you might use different avenues. And protest is one of the latter options, when other options are not, when you've written petitions, when you've made formal communications to government agencies. You have, what response have you received? And now you have considered going to the streets or using other platforms to protest, to make petitions, to demonstrate, and just approach duty bearers. So that's where Article 19 comes in, working with journalists and human rights defenders. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that. And are there job opportunities at Article 19? For those interested, you can see her later. So, Ms. Bina, you also work for Badili Africa, and you have been seen to advocate for civic engagement, especially among the young people. So in relation to our particular theme, how does the freedom of expression play when it comes to civic engagement? And do you view the right to protest also as a fundamental way to express your civic engagement? Yes.
So thank you very much for that question. So I'll just quickly give a summary of what we do at Badili Africa and how that ties to the question that you're asking. So at Badili Africa, in summary, what we do is build political power in unconventional spaces. So we cultivate the leadership engagement of especially young women and grassroots women. So we are known for heavily working with women in chamas. You know, it's a space where we always don't set the political agenda and the leadership agenda of this country, and we carry out our civic space, our civic education and political education there. We're also known for cultivating the capacity of women in the salons and barbers to hold civic conversations. So we have something we call the transformative gossip. So we're just like, you can gossip in the salon, but we need to shape that gossip because women spend so much time in the salon. I mean, this takes me about 4 to 5 hours. So it's important to shape that narrative there. We are also very, very keen in terms of how young women, especially in the university space, engage. So we currently work with 8 universities, and it's not like we don't work with men as well. We still do work with young women, but we recognize the fact that when it comes to political engagement, leadership engagement, young women continue to take a backseat. And I think I am impressed because in recent times I have seen different universities have the, like female presidents, because in the past we never used to see even young women running for the topmost seat. They can hold positions in other leadership capacities, but it's very, very important to infiltrate most of this position, because the university space gives you an opportunity to understand how the macro politics works, because the student governments also man a kitty. The student leaders also decide on priorities in your university space. So it's very important for them to understand how do they engage you and how do you engage with them. It's an opportunity to understand how public participation works. And sometimes you'll also find students who don't even know how much their budget allocation for the student government is, how the decisions were made by the student leaders, which is so important. Why maybe your safety is not prioritized. If they didn't focus, let's say, on menstrual hygiene and focused on something else, what informed that? If you want to recall your leader at the student government level, how do you do that? That's it's micro politics here, but it's entirely how the macro politics works. And I think this particular space gives you an opportunity to engage at that level, to exercise your capacity to also run for office. So even in this particular space, we try and ensure that young women are not left behind. On freedom of expression, I think it's important for us to remember that the right to protest, the right to vote, these were fought for. In fact, I always say I am a privileged citizen because I am fighting for these rights post-2010 Constitution. Most of us quote the Constitution, but just in 2010, a few years ago, we didn't have this Constitution. So you can imagine how it was when you have no Constitution to quote that says, Article 33 gives me a right to protest. Article 43 speaks about the rights that I deserve as a citizen. And I think I just want to pose a quick question and say, how many of us here can articulate Article 43 of the Constitution? Just lift up your hand. If you can articulate Article 43. How many of us? Guys, I don't know if I'm in the right room. Aki, don't break my heart. At least one person. How many of us know Article 43? And don't Google it. How many of us know Article 43? Imagine, don't break my heart. Please, someone save my heart. Save my heart. How many of us know Article 43? Only one person. Guys, one person knows Article 43. In fact, that is probably the first article that you should know. If at all you don't know any article in the Constitution, it's probably the only article you should know. What does Article 43 say, my brother? Just outline the rights. Just outline the rights. Yes, it's correct. It's on social rights. Just outline the rights. Okay, just give me 3. My brother, the way you're surely. Thank you. Guys, Article 43 talks about your right to clean water, your right to quality education, your right to quality healthcare, your right to live in an environment with good sanitation. You know, those are the rights. Like, I think it's about 5 or 6 rights outlined in Article, 6 rights outlined in Article 43. How are you going to defend what you don't understand? Imagine. And for us, imagine, we are here at the university space, and maybe majority of us are first year or second year. I work with people at the community, teen moms, who are depending on us, who are going to sit in policy rooms to fight for those rights. Because whatever they're going through right now, they may not even have the voice to fight for these rights. Literally. How are we going to articulate them? And I'm saying that because yesterday we did have a session with young women. And if you look at the average, how much time do we spend on social media averagely, guys? Just give me a number. Like, what does the research say? How much time do we spend on social media? Give me, like, averagely, what's how much amount of time? About 5 to 6 hours, yeah? 5 to 6 hours. That is 5 to 6 hours. That is an average person. Can you imagine, young person spends about 5 to 6 hours on social media, yeah? How much is Instagram worth today? Does anyone know how much Instagram is worth today? Does anyone know? Or any platform? So Instagram today is worth about 17 billion. Yeah? Why am I drawing that example? Most of these platforms are worth those billions in dollars because of our attention. That's why they're worth those billions. That is why someone can tell you to advertise on this platform, you have to pay. Because if you pay, I can guarantee you 1 million views a day. Where do those 1 million views come from? They come from us. Where do the views on TikTok come from? They come from us. Where do the views on any platform, whether it's Twitter, come from? They come from us. And that is why these capitalistic platforms can charge whatever they want for you to advertise for a day or 2 or 3. And I'm saying in 5 hours, you can use an hour to just learn even just about our own history so that we can defend our rights better. Because I work with Chama women who mobilize for politicians. Your mother mobilizes for a politician. But sometimes they don't mobilize from an informed perspective. I work with political mobilizers. I have run for office myself. I was 22 when I was on the ballot as an MCA. On the ballot, not nomination or trying to run. Like all through. I lost my scholarship when I ran for office at 22. I came back to school when I was 26. Most people graduate when they are 22, 23. But I had fundraised from the community, and by the time I went to campus when I was 22, semester 1, we were nearing the election, 2012. And I lost my scholarship just like that. But I was just like, it's an opportunity to engage at the community level. It's an opportunity to understand how the decisions are being made here. But majority of us as well, when it comes to even defending our freedom of expression, many of us know the president they don't want. They don't know the MCA they don't want. They don't know the MP they don't want. And until last year during the Gen Z protest is when we understood how important the MP position is. Majority of the guys knew their MP for the first time when they saw the posters for which MP voted yes, which MP voted no. But we know the president we want or we don't want. But your safety begins even with your MCA and MP. During femicide, I called out my local leaders because I said, I can call out the president, which I already have, but I live in this hood. I have been born and raised in Kayole. It cannot be that I can't access my hood at night. It doesn't make sense. A young man who leaves their house in the morning to go buy products to come and sell, they can leave at 5 a.m. when the transport is 30 shillings. I can't leave at 5 a.m. because, number one, I not only risk being raped, I also risk being robbed. A young man only risks being robbed. Like when a young man leaves the house, they don't think, oh my God, what if I am raped? But as a young woman, you're just like, am I even appropriately dressed? You even have to consider how you look. Like I wear trousers some days, not because I want, but because of where I am going. I'm like, I can't go downtown with a dress. What if something happens to me? What if someone gropes me when I'm in the matatu? You see, that alone, the safety issue alone, influences how you choose to even show up. But that's different. And I think for me, as I cap it, when it comes to rights, it's the same way I've just asked here. If we don't know Article 43, And we keep on saying we are fighting for our constitution. And Article 43, only one person has responded to it, and it outlines our right. Then how will you fight for the right to water? In communities like mine, where water only comes on Thursday, and it is a norm, how will you say it is not right because other areas, they have water every day? Some of us jump a sewer outside our houses. If we don't understand right to good sanitation, right to good health, how are we going to articulate these issues? And I think my last statement would be why it's so important when it comes to freedom of expression is, what is the median age in this continent? What's the median age? Someone saved my heart again. What's the median age? Okay, what's the median age in Kenya? Okay, I'll just drop the mic. What's the median age in Kenya? What are you guys Googling? Or what do you guys, 5 hours of social media a day, what do you guys like consume? I'm personally not on TikTok, so I wouldn't know. The median age in Kenya is 20. It's 19.2, so 20. And the median age in the continent is still 20. What is the median age of a political leader in Africa? 70. What is the median age? 65. The median age is 63. The difference of about 40 years. So what does that mean? That means any decision a political leader is making, you're going to live much longer with the consequences of those decisions. So if someone is making a decision today and they're 65, and you're 20, and if both of you die at 80, it means you have about 60 years to live with those decisions, and they only have about 20 years to live with those decisions. And that is why it is so important to understand how to engage in any space at the university level, at your community level, but understanding that I will pay a higher price for these decisions. Thank you.
Wow. Thank you so much. Yes. Thank you so much, Ms. Bina. I think that was very eye-opening. We have seen how the freedom of expression also interacts with our socio-economic rights. And I think for those who have not registered as voters, you have the incentive now. Yes, kindly know who you are voting for. So I will move on to you, Ms. Grace. You are a very integral part of this discussion because you are from the Independent Policing and Oversight Authority. And I think most people have heard about it. They know IPOA. Anytime protests make the headline or there's an issue about police, people hear IPOA. But I don't think everyone really understands what IPOA is, what it does, especially and particularly when it comes to their roles in monitoring and governing protests. So maybe you can enlighten us on that.
Okay, thank you for the question. Thank you for the question. So IPOA is an oversight body established under the IPOA Act to provide a civilian oversight over the National Police Service. So we are mandated to promote transparency, professionalism, and accountability in the service, the police service. So basically we uphold the police accountable for the public during their operations. And during protests, right? During protests, we monitor police operations, we observe, we document and investigate complaints that we get after the protest. Some we pick up on motion, and some we receive directly from the public. And once we investigate, we forward our recommendations to the ODPP. And yeah, that is basically what we do as IPOA.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you very much for that response. Coming back to you, Ms. Catherine, and really getting into the flesh of the theme now, from a human rights perspective, how do you think we can establish that balance between protecting the freedom of expression, because we know it's directly linked to the freedom of protest, and maintaining public order, especially when the state or the government is uncomfortable with the protests taking place. So how can we bridge that gap? How can we establish that balance?
Thank you. One, we have to appreciate protest is not a new phenomena. It's not COVID that just found us in 2019 and we've never experienced it. We are surprised. Protest has been there across the world in various years for various reasons. One, whether it's economic rights, whether it's family situations, whether any situation can bring about a protest. So understanding that it's already in international law, it's already in national laws like countries like Kenya. So it's not, and you're not trying to understand it, you're starting from a foundation that others before us have debated, evaluated, and decided this should be the principles and the guidelines that should apply at the universal level, at national level. So let's not be surprised. Let's not act like it's so new that we need to research it more. Let's appreciate what's in the laws. Second, let's look at what does, for example, our Kenya Constitution say. What can we do from both ends, either as protesters or as duty bearers or law enforcement? What is your role? What should I do as a protester? What kind of petition? Who should I approach? At what point does protest come in? Do I have an issue with you, my employer? Do I go to the streets? I have an issue with my school as a parent, or my child's school. Do I go on a protest? What was my immediate options for resolution? Is there an internal mechanism? Is there a regional mechanism? Is there a national organization that can deal with it? If, let's say it's a labor case, is there a labor office at my county level? So what avenues did I have, or has the law established, and what kind of results or response did I get from that duty bearer? By the time I'm going to a protest, what exactly should I do, or what should I not do? Should I give a notification? Should I map up a route? Should I have marshals that guard, like exactly what is my role? Because one aspect of rights is the aspect that comes with responsibilities. And now, as a duty bearer, as the law enforcement, what exactly the citizens have the right to protest? And in even the proposed laws that have come in, there's spontaneous protests that don't have the 3-day notice, that don't have any kind of communication. They just happen on the spot. And we've seen them in Kenya, especially when it comes to women's rights and children's situations in schools. So understanding that there are already principles, there's practice, there's organizations, there's offices that need to handle. What is my role? What is my position? Next is understanding when something goes wrong, where do I get help? I have done a protest, I've been injured, I've been arrested, I've been blocked from accessing XYZ premises. What should I do next? Do I go into breaking doors or do I go and make a formal petition? Do I go to court? So as we engage as civilians, what exactly who should I engage with? Because the idea of a protest is for visibility, yes, but it's also to get a result of something. If I'm protesting on femicide, I want femicide to end. So I do not want to be on the streets indefinitely. I want a better policy, I want better practice, I want accountability for victims, so how do I get to the next step? There has to be a transition. Protests are not an indefinite action. There has to lead to something else, both for protesters but also for duty bearers. And lastly is just, I think I've mentioned it, but lastly is how do we hold people accountable, not only as civilians who might breach the law, what government says as criminal elements, but also for the government, also for duty bearers, for law enforcement. If there is a breach on their side, how do we hold them accountable? How do we make better practices? Because the more they get away with something, the more they can do it. The more there's no change in the system. So how do we, as a society, ensure there's accountability for violations, for breaches of the law by the state, and also, because in law, if I was to protest for, let's say something happened at the university, we protest, we are arrested, we are suspended, we are told you have to pay XYZ to be readmitted. There's consequences for whatever I breached. There has to be consequences on the other side. And lastly is just thinking of what does protest mean? What exactly are we doing? Protest is meant to bring attention to an issue, to a situation. So if I am not a protester and it's happening on my street, outside my business, outside something that in Kenya, in some part of Kenya, what is it leading me towards? How should I appreciate? Because there's a season that protesters were being shamed for being on the streets. Maybe they were human rights defenders, maybe they are journalists. It seems like a you problem. You are protesting, that's a you problem. But we have to come, as Kenyans generally, someone has gone to the streets, they've left their normal operations or plans or engagements to just, because they're not being paid as protesters, generally. Generally, protesters are not paid. Why would you leave your normal day to go to the streets? So there's an issue that needs attention. Before 2024, most of us were not in the finance conversation. The government will pass it, we'll be taxed, XYZ, the next year happens June, July. But now we are thinking more about it. So when you see a protest, when you come across a situation that might bring protest, let us be open to understand what is this person saying? What is the issue? What is that? Because if we are able to resolve the causes of the protest, and even develop better communication channels, protest will be a surprise. Because now if I have a channel to complain, the reason to go to protest does not exist. So protest is not a fun. I know we like the energy, the hype, we saw the Vuvuzela effect, but in reality, the people who go to protests have no option. So let's give them solutions before they reach that level of last resort.
Well, thank you so much for those insightful comments. And I believe as the young people in this room, we are part of that change that she's speaking about. We are the people who will offer those solutions so that it doesn't have to go to the street. But even if it does, we will be there. Yes, so moving on to Miss Bina, you have spoken about your work with women especially, probably as a vulnerable community, and we acknowledge that in our protest settings, sometimes the vulnerable people like women or children can be intimidated in various ways to frustrate the protest, like Miss Catherine had mentioned, also shaming. So, and if I can give you an example, in the last protests that were taking place, June, July, August, we had cases that were being reported, we don't know if they are confirmed, of some women being raped during the protest. And so my question is, even when exercising this right to protest, how can we make sure that it still remains a safe space for women and the children, like the ones that were being shot, so that they can also be able to exercise these rights?
I think, is it audible? You can hear me, yeah? I think, first of all, we have to start with acknowledging the fact that gender-based violence against marginalized groups, especially women, is both a structural issue, a patriarchal issue, and a cultural issue. So I think, first of all, it's important to recognize that even before we look at what has happened in particular instances, because we have to push for changes, like structural changes, so that it is not used as a tool to silence women and as a tool to silence marginalized voices. Because half the time, when you think about the people who will stay away from engaging because they fear being harassed, or they fear being bullied, or they fear being trolled, the bulk of that number is going to be women. Research also shows us that even when it comes to online violence, like there are so many women who censor even their comments online or post less because they just fear being trolled and being bullied. Yeah, it's the same thing that we see. The kind of conversations we see online is still the same thing we see offline. That there are people who will fear showing up because of violence. I mean, personally, when I ran for office as a 22-year-old, I didn't even imagine the magnitude of violence I would either witness or experience as a political actor. You know, you hear about it, you read about it, but nothing prepares you at a personal level for it. Like when you meet goons for the first time and they're attacking you, and you have very limited security, and you can't express yourself, you can talk about what you think needs to change, or you express an issue that needs to change, and someone feels like you're going to make another person look bad if you talk about why do we have to live this way. And that alone makes someone angry enough to feel like they need to attack you, yeah? And even when you look at the cultural aspect of it, you know, we have even communities that really minimize the impact of gender-based violence. You have people who negotiate out of court when even a child has been defiled. So now let's talk about the protest in terms of what happened, which is really sad. And that situation should not only call for sympathy, but for accountability. Accountability both on security forces, yes, in terms of guaranteeing, their role in guaranteeing security, one, but also accountability on civilians, courts doing that when it comes to protest. Because as my colleague said, sometimes, and most of the time, people show up because it is their last resort. You know, they feel like they're not being heard. They have tried dialogue, they have tried everything, and they're like, this is the only way you're going to hear me, you know? And by the time someone is risking their life to show up, I mean, we saw, even this year, I think we saw people recording their own videos, and they know very well that I might show up and I might lose my life. But they're like, whatever needs to be said, even if it means my life is going to be on the line. But as a country, we don't need to let it get there. We don't need to. Because, I mean, I look at the challenges we go through, and not only as young people, this is the most depressed generation of young people, unemployed generation of young people, most suicidal generation. When I talk to my mom and, you know, like my grandparents and my uncles, they don't even tell me about their classmates who died of suicide. You know, they can talk to our grandmothers. But for us, in our generation, our peers, that is something you fear that your colleague might go through something, or your student friend might go through something, and you're afraid that they might take out their life. You see what I mean? You're having one of also the most brilliant. While they're the most depressed, they're also the most brilliant generation, you know? Because we were educated by parents who didn't even finish university, and they have sacrificed so much to ensure that we finish university. And you're having young people question whether education is going to matter, because we're not even creating a conducive environment where a young person who has ideas can thrive. So it's important that when people want to express their frustration, they're not met with such level of violence, because all you want is to come to a table and have a solution. In this country, data shows us that every year we have 800,000 people graduating from learning institutions in a country that can only accommodate 50,000, yeah? And young people are not saying that, oh, we all want to go to government. That's not what young people are saying. And they're not saying that we want your job. They're saying, just do your job and do it well. That is what young people are saying. And accountability on whether you are doing your job well or you're not doing it well. Young people are saying, I want to build this. I want to create this. Is the environment conducive? Why do I have to maybe pay for all these certificates just to start a business, and all this is gobbling up my capital? Can I access credit? You know, if you don't have land, let's say as collateral, you know, you don't have like resources that either your parents can give you. You know, can we make it easier to access credit? So when people come with such conversations, you cannot meet them with violence. But when it comes to safety, because sometimes we can't trust that you will go to the protest and come back home safely. So at now a personal level, buddy system is very important. Let someone know you've gone to the protest. You see, Because I know for us, even for my friends that we went to both protests with, we knew where we were, you know. And then we also made sure that we share our location, our live location. After every 10 minutes, we were sharing our live location. So we had like a WhatsApp group and we were sharing like, hey, where are you? I'm in this corner, I'm in this corner. Something has happened, I am here, you see. So it is very, very important to do that. 3, document. Visibility. Some of the cases that we have seen where we've seen accountability, even with the Ojwang case and all that, if there was no proper documentation and visibility, I think we would not have seen the kind of action that we did see once even the footage was revealed to the public. So document, visibilize what is happening. 4, partner with institutions, whether it's Katiba here, Article 19, IPOA, in terms of accountability on the security forces, so that perpetrators are brought to account. 5, legal action. Partner with, you know, whether it's LSK, you know, partner with legal bodies that can offer pro bono services when you want to represent victims or survivors. You know, guys have been arrested, they're behind bars. Sometimes at a personal level, you don't have the capacity, you know, to offer the expertise or to offer the resources, but you do have firms that can do that. And lastly, it's survivor-centered care for those ones who've been hurt. People go through a lot, even the trauma of just showing up, the trauma of seeing someone lying down dead and you left the house with them in the morning, you know. Even just what we consume from the social media spaces sometimes, you know, like it just dampens everything, you know, and you feel like, are things working? Will things work? But we have to remain hopeful, because for me, I always say this is one of the most brilliant generation of young people, and I'm pretty optimistic because they are reversing how we are thinking about everything and sending chills down the spines of leaders, because even a leader who knew, I'm going to come with a block of Luya votes and negotiate at the table. For the first time, guys are saying, me, you can't box me in a tribe. They are pushing back. So the same person who's pushing back is the same person you want to go negotiate with, you see. They're forcing us to rethink our systems. They're forcing us to rethink the economy of this country. They're forcing us to talk about all this money, the leakages that we have, you know. What can 1 billion do? What can 10 billion do? Why are we losing it? Why is there no accountability? Why are you having your loyal friends join government and maybe it's not based on merit? Why is the private sector not working? Because if we do invest in the private sector in this country, people don't have to feel like I need to work in government to make it in life. You know, in fact, I always see out there, you know, out there half the time, most people desire to work more in the private sector than to work in government, you know. And when you move to government, you actually are paid less. Unlike here in Africa, where most of our billionaires have not even invented anything. Out there, billionaires have invented something, you see. But here, guys feel like, oh, Gava, private sector, if we allow and create a conducive environment, people won't even desire to be there. They'll just desire to make things work where they are. Because honestly, I meet brilliant young people every day and they surprise me. And for me, I'm always like, I feel like I'll even leave the organization much earlier and have another young person run the NGO, because I love their brilliance. And I think that's what we need for where we are at. Thanks.
Thank you so much for that. Yes, I think you have provided very important points on the protest, and the first one that I captured was making sure that you are safe. And if I could just reiterate that, when going out for protest, make sure someone knows where you are. There's the issue of documentation. Record as much as you can while you're outside. And lastly, a point that was also mentioned by Ms. Catherine on accountability, which actually brings me to my question on Ms. Grace. Sometimes we want to hold these people accountable. We are raging on the internet, but there is usually a lot of conflict between what amounts to excessive force by the police, and sometimes they are saying it's proportionate. So in your line of profession, what amounts to a balanced response by the police to protests? And as Kenyans, are we anywhere near that threshold? Ama bado tuko mbali sana?
Well, according to me, a balanced police response is upholding public safety without necessarily suppressing fundamental rights or freedom. Like, for example, if you found a rowdy crowd or a rowdy person, did you try to de-escalate the issue? Did you try to have dialogue with this person before you used force with them, you know? Did you try to use minimal force, or you just went straight up and shot them, you know? So I believe that we do have a long way to go, but through constant police training and reforms, I believe we'll get there. Yeah.
Yes, thank you very much for that. You have given us hope. And now moving to our last question of this panel segment, and I will direct this question to all our panelists. As we think about our theme of striking this balance, do you have any hope for our future protests? Not just here in Kenya. I know we are all aware there is an uprising of protests everywhere, in Madagascar, in Morocco, significantly led by the young people. So looking at the future, what gives you hope about the right to protest?
If I was extremely optimistic, I would say we have the right to, but we don't have the need to. That things work. Things just work. And when they don't work, there's an unsafe way for me to get what I need. So in a future world across the globe, that protest, it's there, but we don't need it. And we don't, because things are working. But one thing that we have to plan for and consider, we already have the international law, we have regional laws, we have national laws in some countries that actually promote it. But how progressive are we? The Kenyan public order management law is years. The first document was developed even before we got independence. We are using a 1950-something document. It's been revised, it's been trying to be edited, but it's not where we need it to be in a 2010 constitution era. As of last year, the version by Honorable Ruku in May 2024 was the 21st attempt. This year we have Pasari's attempt, 2020. So every year we are having attempts that just are not taking us further. They're repeating the same documents in even the worst language sometimes. So our law has to change as Kenya. There are other countries that are better. Uganda, Tanzania are not even there. So individual laws at different countries have to change. That's the first thing. Second, as a society, and I have to say this too, again, I am a millennial. Human rights defender as a person. We have seen the Gen Z activists walk away from dialogue. And as much as we see the pain, we have to create room for dialogue as a society. Because protest situations, if we continue as we are, we have two options, and they are extremes. We either find a way to dialogue and discuss, and I'm not saying we'll agree on everything, but there has to be a way to dialogue before a protest, during a protest, and after a protest. I lived in the era where we saw a police officer dialogue in Kital, Eldoret, back in post-election violence. I have that video in my head to date. How he was overwhelmed by the numbers, and the only thing he could do was talk his way out. And that's a video I know circulated for years. I hope it still is available. The comment that says, Kenya tumejenga na miaka nyingi mnataka kuiharibu na siku moja. That video. I don't know if everyone has that memory. But there has to be a place where we dialogue. And because the extreme we'll end up like our neighboring countries who are in civil war. The constitution will be suspended, state of emergency, we have militia groups coming up, and we go into war. And we are all in universities. All our families are paying money. Your degree, your education means zero when you're crossing over a border. I have had the unfortunate honor of going into a refugee camp in Dadaab, in Kakuma. That's not a life I want. That's not a life I would wish on my worst enemy. So I may not like how things are, But if I can stop a civil war through dialogue, I will choose it. Because that option is not a plan. We already have a country where military can work or can be on our streets. That's not a good signal. They are peaceful, they are reasonable, they are rational, as we might understand them. But when the rubber hits the road, they could be our worst enemy. Ask Nigeria. Like, we've seen it in Africa. So where does dialogue come in? Another aspect I would remember is, again, accountability. There's no way around it. If I did something wrong as a protester, if I did something wrong as a duty bearer, as a government officer, there has to be consequences. We tell that to our children. When you do this, there'll be consequences. As students, you're told, if you don't do this, you will fail your exams. If you break the law, you'll be suspended. So it only seems to work for some of us, but not for all of us. Yet we have a rule of law as a country. So there has to be consequences and accountability for everyone's actions. There's no way around it. And that's where our partners come in, from IPOA, KNCHR, and other government agencies. Lastly, we also, I will not stretch it out. We need to think of the different actors that we can work with. Whether you're talking about the constitutional independent offices, whether you're talking at the media who need to tell us the right narratives, whether you're looking at academia who need to do research, every one of us has a role to play. So we need, I know you say form ni Daystar, but to be honest, form ni numbers, form ni unity. Like, we have to work together to build. Everyone has a role to play. So if you're not doing your part, you're the weakest link in this chain of building our country. And lastly, I want us to remember what changed the conversation last year was art. Some of us have written the memos, we've gone to parliament, we've spoken to our politicians in the county halls, in different formal processes. But when art was brought to the conversation, it was a game changer. So if any of us or any of our networks are into art, they might be what makes us wake up to the reality that we are in a bad place. We all watch adverts. We've talked about social media. If social media was words only, that percentage would go down to maybe 10%. But because of the music around it, the AI around it, the humor around it, the comics around it, that changes our understanding. And that's the community we need to relate to. So if you can package your message in any artistic way, you might actually get further with your message than we think. Sometimes our documents have a place, our formalities have a place, but art is a game changer we need to embrace. Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much, Ms. Catherine. That was very insightful, and I particularly liked what you said about you see a future where we have the right, but we don't need it. Yes, that's really left a mark. And maybe to emphasize on something else she has talked about is that there are other alternatives. Before we result into protest, let's consider all the other alternatives and the important aspect of art that I'm sure most of us had not thought about as a way to protest in your own way. So yeah, thank you so much, Ms. Catherine. So over to you, Ms. Bina.
So I think I'll say, so I want to say this as a mother of a young boy, and I want to say that anytime I look at my son, you know, there are days I look at my son and I'm just like, I wonder what country you're going to live in. I wonder what city you're going to grow up in. And there are days I would be like, will my name Bina Maseno keep me off opportunities because we live in a country where sometimes ethnicity defines whether you're going to get opportunities or not. So I think for me, I'd like to say that to that question, I am pretty hopeful because of this generation that is unafraid to speak truth to power and to demand accountability in ways that past generations have not done that. I am hopeful because the African continent is made up of 60% are actually the young people. And they have refused to be defined by tribe, by party, affiliation, by class. And they have refused to accept that Africa will be defined by corruption and inequality, and they are reversing that. I am hopeful because despite all the young people have gone through, despite the shrinking civic space, despite the unemployment situation, not only in Kenya, but in the continent, they are organizing and mobilizing using technology, again, in ways that we could not fathom. They are communicating, they are building solidarity, not only even across tribe, but they're building solidarity across the continent. And that gives me hope every day, and that's why I say that we must create conditions that allow for our young people to thrive, because the young people that we are talking about, all of us, they are not the future, but the current force of transformation. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And lastly, Miss Grace.
Yes, I do have hope. The growing awareness amongst the youths and also police officers, speaking for IPOA, yeah, I do believe that we're headed somewhere great as a generation. I'm also a Gen Z. And yeah, I do believe we're headed somewhere with more civic education, you know, also education amongst peers. Talk to your peers about voting, about police, about all these, you know, institutions, you know, the continuous creation of awareness. It's amazing, and I love it. I love to see it for us, yeah.
Yes, so that marks the end of our panel discussion, and I would like to thank our panelists once more for making time and helping us generate very meaningful conversations. I'm sure each one of us has some takeaways to take home and tell other people about it. As we have been told, continuous creation of awareness. So the panel session is over, and I will hand over the mic back to the MC to guide us on the photo session. Thank you so much, our audience also. You have been wonderful.
Okay, so please, one more time even for our host, you know. Yes, as we proceed, we're going into the photo session, and I'd like to call Ayub to come here and assist us with the gifting. So, Mr. Ayub. Okay, as he finishes up, maybe I can get the hampers here, and then we proceed. Victoria Mudeu, judge, is she here? Victoria Mudeu? Okay. Yes, Mr. Ayub, please make your way to the front. A round of applause as he comes. Yes. Okay, can I get the cameraman? Yes, sawa. Let's proceed.
And please, guys, follow us on our social media, X, Facebook, and WhatsApp channel. Thank you, that's it.
Sawa. We still have people on Facebook here? Interesting. Okay. Or maybe you can give us your handles in case someone is here and they had a pending question. but they feel restricted because of time, where can we find you?
For today, we have a stand out there. You'll see we have a huge banner, IPOA. But if you have any questions away from here, you can ask us on our social media pages or also on email. Thank you.
So for anyone who wants to engage with our work, whether at the community level or campus level, our handle is badili_A. That is Badili Africa on Twitter, Badili Africa on Facebook. Yeah. And Badili_A, that is Badili Africa as well on Instagram. And I think Badili001. Okay, I need to join TikTok. Yeah, I'm not sure about the TikTok handle. Mine is Bina Maseno on all the platforms. And thank you so much. Happy to continue engaging. And please, guys, Article 43, yeah? Yeah? Okay.
So we are the same, Article 19, Eastern Africa, on all socials, X, Twitter. You can follow us on YouTube, watch our videos, get more information. Also on Facebook, a very old page, but it exists. Also, we have, as you asked, we have opportunities for internship, pupillage, and attachments. So it's on periodic basis, and we are open to receiving as many journalists and lawyers across the board. Thank you.
Let us please appreciate them. Nice. Yeah, so if you're on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, TikTok, IG, yeah, you can find them there. It has been lovely, so we proceed to the next session. So kameramani tafadhali tunakuhitaji. Please. Yes. Let's go, Mr. Ayub. I don't know how you prefer. Yes. So as they receive, we give them a round of applause. Yes. Thank you. Thank you so much. Amazing, amazing. A round of applause. Yes. Yes, yes. Amazing, amazing, amazing. And then now, okay. So group photo, and then you will take them to the boardroom, and then we'll have our own briefing. Sawa. Okay. Yes, and you are smiling, please. Nice. A round of applause, a round of applause. Thank you so much for coming. So, guys, don't leave yet. Caleb still has an announcement to make. So, karibu.
Yeah, good afternoon, everyone. Now I am here to be the bearer of both good news and bad news. We are proceeding to the next rounds. Are all Mootas here? Okay, so we had considerations of moving immediately to the semi-finals, but we relied on our Moot rules. And we have come to the conclusion that disqualifying 12 teams at a go will be very diabolical, and it won't really make sense, right? So. Oh yes, Article 19 has also given us a batch of books which will be distributed to all Mootas after today's rounds. They'll be included in your gift bags. Yes, so we are now proceeding to the quarterfinals.